I guess I first became interested in wine because my father was very interested in wine, and there was always wine on the table at home, and I grew up with it just as part of a meal, like people do in wine-drinking areas of the world. And when I was 11 years old, he took me to France, and he was a Burgundy guy, and he took me to Burgundy, and while my friends were back in the States playing baseball in the summertime, I was in the cellars of Pommard and Corton Charlemagne tasting wine at 11. So I really got interested in it, and I learned a lot about it, and it carried through. I never thought I could make a living doing it, but it turned out I could. I would say that I'm on the road about a third of the time. Most of that travel time is spent visiting wine regions around the world. There is not one that I haven't been to, and that includes New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, Chile, Hungary. It's just kind of something that I feel is my responsibility to see what these places are like and what the people are like and what they're doing. It's very useful. I think it's basically impossible to do what I do sitting at a desk. I think a good wine, the most important thing is balance, and that it be clean and true to the fruit that it's made from, that it reflect the soil that it comes from. I think there is a tendency for a kind of an international style to creep into wine, but I think what's most important about wine, and that what makes it so interesting, is that every wine is different, and every wine is a reflection of the person who made it and the place where it was grown. So I think to preserve that is very, very important, and that's what a great wine is. It's a wine with character. I focus on American wines because American wines are the most popular wines in the United States, and but I don't focus on them to the exclusion of everything else. As a matter of fact, I spend an inordinate amount of time talking and drinking and tasting wines from all the different wine regions of the world. But there is this whole odyssey of the American wine industry, which really, really didn't get its start in the modern age until 1966. It's just such a fantastic story. I mean, how 10 years after its inception, there was a tasting in Paris in which the American wines beat the French wines that have been traditionally considered the greatest in the world. And from that point on, California has been considered in parity with all the great wine-producing areas of the world, although different. I mean, that's the important thing. California wines have their own particular style, and so do the wines of Oregon and Washington, and other parts of the United States, too. I think that there's been a tremendous growth in the state of Washington, particularly in the eastern part of the state, around the Walla Walla area. Just fantastic wines coming out of there. I think that that's where the best Merlot in America is being made right now. And certainly the explosion of fabulous wines from the Santa Barbara area is very exciting to me. Also the Central Coast. I mean, Napa and Sonoma have been the traditional places for great wines in America, but I think that right now the most exciting things are happening on the Central Coast and in the Santa Barbara area. The wine guides that have been out there the last 10 or 15 or 20 years have been very Eurocentric. I mean, they start with 75 pages on Bordeaux. Well, I think that most American consumers don't drink a whole lot of Bordeaux. They drink California wines and Oregon and Washington State wines and New York State wines. So the format of this book is basically it begins with the New World and finishes with the Old World. So it begins with California, Washington, Oregon, and all the rest of the U.S., and includes the up-and-coming New World countries such as Australia, Chile, Argentina, South Africa. And this is, this is the bulk of the wines that are consumed in the United States are from that area. Then we get to the old world, and you have, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, and so on, and they're important, but in the American market, and this book is written for the American consumer, they are less important than they are elsewhere. And I think the most important thing is that we always kept in mind in putting this book together that this is something that somebody should have in their hand when they walk into a wine shop, and they look at all those bottles, and they can just look it up in the book, and it'll tell them if this is a wine to take seriously or not. The book is also going to be available as an e-book, and so people can have it downloaded into their PDAs and walk into a wine shop and just search through the database and find out exactly whether this is a worthy wine producer or not. I think that's what Americans are much more knowledgeable about wine, but there are so many thousands of wines out there. We have nearly 4,000 wineries described and pinpointing their specific varieties and so on. This is, I believe, a very useful tool for American wine consumers. This is the first of a new series, and we built this book from the ground up. It's totally from scratch. It's not based on anybody else's work. It was how I really felt that this subject should be treated, and it was a labor of love, let me tell you, and a lot of work. But I think that what we have is the most comprehensive and the most relevant guide to wine that has yet been published in the United States.